Hello everybody, let's continue with reading the Bible. Let's stay in good and let us read the Bible to discover new paths of good. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, of all land animals, these are the ones you may eat. Any animal that has hooves you may eat, provided it is cloven-footed and chews the cud. But you shall not eat any of the following that only chew the cud or only have hooves: the camel, which indeed chews the cud but does not have hooves and is therefore unclean for you; uh, the rock badger, which indeed chews the cud but does not have hooves and is therefore unclean for you; the hare, which indeed chews the cud but does not have hoofs and is therefore unclean for you; and the pig, which does indeed have hoofs but is cloven-footed but does not chew the cud and is therefore unclean for you. Their flesh you shall not eat, and their dead bodies you shall not touch, they are unclean for you. Of the various creatures that live in the water you may eat the following: whatever in the seas or in river waters has both fins and scales you may eat. But of the various creatures that crawl or swim in the water, whether in the sea or in the rivers, all those that lack either fins or scales are loathsome for you, and you shall treat them as loathsome. Their flesh you shall not eat, and their dead bodies you shall loathe. Every water creature that lacks fins or scales is loathsome for you. Of the birds, these you shall loathe, and as loathsome they shall not be eaten: the eagle, the vulture, the osprey, the kite, the various species of falcons, the various species of crows, the ostrich, the nightjar, the gull, the various species of hawks, the owl, the cormorant, the screech owl, the barn owl, the desert owl, the buzzard, the stork, the various species of herons, the hoopoe, and the bat. The various winged insects that walk on all fours are loathsome for you, but of the various winged insects that walk on all four, you may eat those that have joint legs for leaping on the ground. Hence of these you may eat the following: the various kinds of locusts, the various kinds of grasshoppers, the various kinds of katydids, and the various kinds of crickets. All other winged insects that have four legs are loathsome for you. Such is the uncleanness that you contract, that everyone who touches their dead bodies shall be unclean until evening, and everyone who picks up any part of their dead bodies shall wash his garments and be unclean until evening. All hoofed animals that are not cloven-footed or do not chew the cud are unclean for you. Everyone who touches them becomes unclean. Of the various quadrupeds, all those that walk on paws are unclean for you. Everyone who touches their dead bodies shall be unclean until evening, and everyone who picks up their dead bodies shall wash his garments and be unclean until evening. Such is their uncleanness for you. Of the creatures that swarm on the ground, the following are unclean for you: the rat, the mouse, the various kinds of lizards, the gecko, the chameleon, the agama, the skink, and the mole. Among the various swarming creatures, these are unclean for you. Everyone who touches them when they are dead shall be unclean until evening. Everything on which one of them falls when dead becomes unclean. Any such article that men use, whether it be an article of wood, cloth, leather, or goat hair, must be put in water and remain unclean until evening, when it again becomes clean. Should any of these creatures fall into a clay vessel, everything in it becomes unclean, and the vessel itself you must break. Any solid food that was in contact with water and any liquid that men drink in any such vessel become unclean. Any object on which one of their dead bodies falls becomes unclean. If it is an oven or a jar stand, this must be broken to pieces. They are unclean and shall be treated as unclean by you. However, a spring or a cistern for collecting water remains clean, but whoever touches the dead body becomes unclean. Any sort of cultivated grain remains clean, even though one of their dead bodies falls on it. But if the grain has become moistened, it becomes unclean when one of these falls on it. When one of the animals that you could otherwise eat dies of itself, everyone who touches its dead body shall be unclean until evening. And anyone who eats of its dead body shall wash his garments and be unclean until evening. So also anyone who removes its dead body shall wash his garments and be unclean until evening. All the creatures that swarm on the ground are loathsome and shall not be eaten. Uh, Whether it crawls on its belly, goes on all fours, or has many legs, you shall eat no swarming creature, they are loathsome. Do not make yourselves loathsome or unclean with any swarming creature, through con- being contaminated by them. For I, the Lord, am your God, and you shall make and keep yourselves holy, because I am holy. You shall not make yourselves unclean than by any swarming creature that crawls on the ground. Since I, the Lord, brought you up from the land of Egypt, that I might be your God, you shall be holy, because I am holy. This is the law for animals and birds, and for all the creatures that move about in the water or swarm on the ground, that you may distinguish between the clean and the unclean, between creatures that may be eaten and those that may not be eaten. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, when a woman has conceived and gives birth to a boy, she shall be unclean for 7 days, with the same uncleanness as at her menstrual period. On the eighth day, the flesh of the boy's foreskin shall be circumcised, and then she shall spend 33 days more in becoming purified of her blood. She shall not touch anything sacred nor enter the sanctuary till the days of her purification are fulfilled. If she gives birth to a girl, for 14 days she shall be as unclean as at her menstruation, after which she shall spend 66 days in becoming purified of her blood. When the days of her purification for a son or for a daughter are fulfilled, she shall bring to the priest at the entrance of the meeting tent a yearling lamb for a holocaust and a pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. The priest shall offer them up before the Lord to make atonement for her, and thus she will be clean again after her flow of blood. Such is the law for the woman who gives birth to a boy or a girl child. If, however, she cannot afford a lamb, she may take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, the one for a holocaust and the other for a sin offering. The priest shall make atonement for her, and thus she will again be clean. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, if someone has on his skin a scab or a pustule or a blotch which appears to be the sore of leprosy, he shall be brought to Aaron the priest or to one of the priests among his descendants, who shall examine the sore on his skin. If the hair on the sore has turned white and the sore itself shows that it has penetrated below the skin, it is indeed the sore of leprosy. The priest, on seeing this, shall declare the man unclean. If, however, the blotch on the skin is white, but does not seem to have penetrated below the skin, nor has the hair turned white, the priest shall quarantine the stricken man for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall again examine him. If he judges that the sore has remained unchanged and has not spread on the skin, the priest shall quarantine him for another 7 days. and once more examine him on the seventh day. If the sore is now dying out and has not spread on the skin, the priest shall declare the man clean. It was merely eczema. The man shall wash his garments and so become clean. But if, after he has shown himself to the priest to be declared clean, the eczema spreads at all on his skin, he shall once more show himself to the priest. Should the priest, on examining it, find that the eczema has indeed spread on the skin, he shall declare the man unclean, it is leprosy. When someone is stricken with leprosy, he shall be brought to the priest. Should the priest, on examining him, find that there is a white scab on the skin, which has turned the hair white, and that there is raw flesh in it, it is a skin leprosy that has long developed. The priest shall declare the man unclean without first quarantining him, since he is certainly unclean. If leprosy breaks out on the skin, and as far as the priest can see covers all the skin of the stricken man from head to foot, should the priest then, on examining him, find that the leprosy does cover his whole body, he shall declare the stricken man clean, since it has all turned white, the man is clean. But as soon as raw flesh appears on him, he is unclean. On observing the raw flesh, the priest shall declare him unclean, because raw flesh is unclean, it is leprosy. If, however, the raw flesh again turns white, he shall return to the priest. Should the latter, on examining him, find that the sore has indeed turned white, he shall declare the stricken man clean, and thus he will be clean. If a man who had a boil on his skin, which later healed, should now in the place of the boil have a white scab or a pink blotch, he shall show himself to the priest. If the latter on examination sees that it is deeper than the skin and that the hair has turned white, he shall declare the man unclean. It is the sore of leprosy that has broken out in the boil. But if the priest, on examining him, finds that there is no white hair in it and that it is not deeper than the skin and is already dying out, the priest shall quarantine him for 7 days. If it has then spread on the skin, the priest shall declare him unclean, the man is stricken. But if the blotch remains in its place without spreading, it is merely the scar of the boil, the priest shall therefore declare him clean. If a man had a burn on his skin, and the proud flesh of the burn now becomes a pink or a white blotch, the priest shall examine it. If the hair has turned white on the blotch and this seems to have penetrated below the skin, it is leprosy that has broken out in the burn. The priest shall therefore declare him unclean and stricken with leprosy. But if the priest, on examining it, finds that there is no white hair on the blotch and that this is not deeper than the skin and is already dying out, the priest shall quarantine him for 7 days. Should the priest, when examining it on the 7th day, find that it has spread at all on the skin, he shall declare the man unclean and stricken with leprosy. But if the blotch remains in its place without spreading on the skin and is already dying out, it is merely the scab of the burn, the priest shall therefore declare the man clean, since it is only the scar of the burn. When a man or a woman has a sore on the head or cheek, should the priest, on examining it, find that the sore has penetrated below the skin and that there is fine yellow hair on it, the priest shall declare the person unclean, for this is a scole, a leprous disease of the head or cheek. But if the priest, on examining the skull sore, finds that it has not penetrated below the skin, though the hair on it may not be black, the priest shall quarantine the person with skull sore for 7 days, and on the 7th day again examine the sore. If the skull has not spread and has no yellow hair on it and does not seem to have penetrated below the skin, the man shall shave himself, but not on the diseased spot. Then the priest shall quarantine him for another 7 days. If the priest, when examining the skull on the 7th day, finds that it has not spread on the skin and that it has not penetrated below the skin, he shall declare the man clean. The latter shall wash his garments, and thus he will be clean. But if the scald spreads at all on his skin after he has been declared clean, the priest shall again examine it. If the scald has indeed spread on the skin, he need not look for yellow hair, the man is surely unclean. If, however, he judges that the scald has remained in its place and that black hair has grown on it, the disease has been healed, the man is clean, and the priest shall declare him clean. When the skin of a man or a woman is spotted with white blotches, the priest shall make an examination. If the blotches on the skin are white and already dying out, it is only tatter that has broken out on the skin, and the person therefore is clean. When a man loses the hair of his head, he is not unclean merely because of his bald crown. So too, if he loses the hair on the front of his head, he is not unclean merely because of his bald forehead. But when there is a pink sore on his bald crown or bald forehead, it is leprosy that is breaking out there. The priest shall examine him, and if the scab on the sore of the bald spot has the same pink appearance as that of skin leprosy of the fleshy part of the body, the man is leprous and unclean, and the priest shall declare him unclean by reason of the sore on his head. The one who bears the sore of leprosy shall keep his garments rent and his head bare, and shall muffle his beard. He shall cry out, unclean, unclean. As long as the sore is on him, he shall declare himself unclean, since he is in fact unclean. He shall dwell apart, making his abode outside the camp. When a leprous infection is on a garment of wool or of linen, or on a woven or knitted material of linen or wool, or on a hide of or anything made of leather, if the infection on the garment or hide, or on the woven or knitted material, or on any leather article is greenish or reddish, the thing is indeed infected with leprosy and must be shown to the priest. Having examined the infection, the priest shall quarantine the infected article for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall again examine the infection. If it has spread on the garment, or on the woven or knitted material, or on the leather, whatever be its use, the infection is malignant leprosy and the article is unclean. He shall therefore burn up the garment, or the woven or knitted material of wool or linen, or the leather article, whatever it may be, which is infected. Since it has a malignant leprosy, it must be destroyed by fire. But if the priest, on examining the infection, finds that it has not spread on the garment, or on the woven or knitted material, or on the leather article, he shall give orders to have the infected article washed and then quarantined for another 7 days. Then the priest shall again examine the infected article after it has been washed. If the infection has not changed its appearance, even though it may not have spread, the article is unclean and shall be destroyed by fire. But if the priest, on examining the infection, finds that it is dying out after the washing, he shall tear the infected part out of the garment, or the leather, or the woven or knitted material. If, however, the infection again appears on the garment, or on the woven or knitted material, or on the leather article, it is still virulent, and the thing infected shall be destroyed by fire. But if, after the washing, the infection has left the garment, or the woven or knitted material, or the leather article, the thing shall be washed a second time, and thus it will be clean. This is the law for leprous infection on a garment of wool or linen, or on a woven or knitted material, or on any leather article, to determine whether it is clean or unclean. The Lord said to Moses, "This is the law for the victim of leprosy. At the time of his purification, he shall be brought to the priest, who is to go outside the camp to examine him. If the priest finds that the sore of leprosy has healed in the leper, he shall order the man who is to be purified to get 2 live, clean birds, as well as some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. The priest shall then order him to slay one of the birds over an earthen vessel with spring water in it, taking the living bird with the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop. The priest shall dip them all in the blood of the bird that was slain over the spring water, and then sprinkle 7 times the man to be purified from his leprosy. When he has thus purified him, he shall let the living bird fly away over the countryside. The man being purified shall then wash his garments and shave off all his hair and bath in water. Only man he is thus made clean may he come inside the camp, but he shall still remain outside his tent for 7 days. On the 7th day he shall again shave off all the hair of his head, his beard, his eyebrows, and any other hair he may have, and also wash his garments and bathe his body in water, and so he will be clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 unblemished male lambs, 1 unblemished yearling of lamb, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering, and 1 lock of oil. The priest who performs the purification ceremony shall place the man who is being purified, as well as all these offerings, before the Lord at the entrance of the meeting tent. Taking one of the male lambs, the priest shall present it as a guilt offering, along with the lock of oil, waving them as a wave offering before the Lord. This lamb he shall slaughter in the sacred place, where the sin offering and the holocaust are slaughtered, because like the sin offering, the guilt offering belongs to the priest and is most sacred. Then the priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the tip of the man's right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot. The priest shall also take the lock of oil and pour some of it into the palm of his own left hand. Then, dipping his right forefinger in it, he shall sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord. Of the oil left in his hand, the priest shall put some on the tip of the man's right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot, over the blood of the guilt offering. The rest of the oil in his hand the priest shall put on the head of the man being purified. Thus shall the priest make atonement for him before the Lord. Only after he has offered the sin offering in atonement for the man's uncleanness shall the priest slaughter the holocaust, and offer it together with the cereal offering on the altar before the Lord. When the priest has thus made atonement for him, the man will be clean. If a man is poor and cannot afford so much, he shall take 1 male lamb for a guilt offering to be used as a wave offering in atonement for himself, 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering, a lock of oil, and 2 turtle doves or pigeons, which he can more easily afford, the one as a sin offering and the other as a holocaust. On the 8th day of his purification, he shall bring them to the priest at the entrance of the meeting tent before the Lord. Taking the guilt offering lamb, along with the lock of oil, the priest shall wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. When he has slaughtered the guilt offering lamb, he shall take some of its blood and put it on the tip of the right ear of the man being purified, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. The priest shall then pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and with his right forefinger sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord. Some of the oil in his hand the priest shall also put on the tip of the man's right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot, over the blood of the guilt offering. The rest of the oil in his hand the priest shall put on the man's head. Thus shall he make atonement for him before the Lord. Then of the turtle doves or pigeons, such as the man can afford, the priest shall offer up one as a sin offering and the other as a holocaust, along with the cereal offering. Thus shall the priest make atonement before the Lord for the man who is to be purified. This is the law for one afflicted with leprosy, who has insufficient means for his purification. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I am giving you to possess, if I put a leprosy infection on any house of the land you occupy, the owner of the house shall come and report to the priest. It looks to me as if my house were infected. The priest shall then order the house to be cleared out before he goes in to examine the infection, lest everything in the house become unclean. Only after this is he to go in to examine the house. If the priest, on examining it, finds that the infection on the walls of the house consists of greenish or reddish depressions which seem to go deeper than the surface of the wall, he shall close the door of the house behind him and quarantine the house for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall return to examine the house again. If he finds that the infection has spread on the walls, he shall order the infected stones to be pulled out and cast in an unclean place outside the city. The whole inside of the house shall then be scraped, and the mortar that has been scraped off shall be dumped in an unclean place outside the city. Then new stones shall be brought and put in the place of the old stones, and new mortar shall be made and plastered on the house. If the infection breaks out once more after the stones have been pulled out and the house has been scraped and replastered, the priest shall come again, and if he finds that the infection has spread in the house, it is corrosive leprosy and the house is unclean. It shall be pulled down, and all its stones, beams, and mortar shall be hauled away to an unclean place outside the city. Whoever enters a house while it is quarantined shall be unclean until evening. Whoever sleeps or eats in such a house shall also wash his garments. If the priest finds when he comes to examine the house that the infection has in fact not spread after the plastering, he shall declare the house clean, since the infection has been healed. To purify the house, he shall take 2 birds as well as cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. One of the birds he shall slay over an earthen vessel with spring water in it. Then taking the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn, together with the living bird, he shall dip them all in the blood of the slain bird and the spring water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. Thus shall he purify the house with the bird's blood and the spring water, along with the living bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn. He shall then let the living bird fly away over the countryside outside the city. When he has thus made atonement for it, the house will be clean. This is the law for every kind of human leprosy and scole, for leprosy of garments and houses, as well as for scabs, pustules, and blotches, so that it may be manifest they are in a state of uncleanness, and when a state of cleanness. This is the law for leprosy. Okay, we stop here for today. I firmly believe that Bible will help us to become better people, even when we read some technical parts here in the Old Testament. I believe that everything has sense, and that we shall understand more deeply the Bible when we read more. I hope that we shall continue as soon. Thank you very much. See you next time.